Welcome to the podcast today, everybody. Before we get started, a little housekeeping that I need to take care of here. First off, thanks for listening to the Player Engage podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us at Player Engage. You could also go to playerengage.com to check us out. Also, with GDC coming up, if you're looking to check out GDC, Keywords as well as Community Clubhouse are hosting a number of events. So be sure to check out playerengage.com where we'll have links where you can learn about and attend Community Clubhouse and also see what we're doing at GDC. So check it out and enjoy today's podcast. Thanks a lot for listening, guys.
Welcome to the Player Engage podcast, where we dive into the biggest challenges, technologies, trends, and best practices for creating unforgettable player experiences. Player Engage is brought to you as a collaboration between Keyword Studios and HelpShift. Here is your host, Greg Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Player Engage podcast. Greg here. Today, we are joined by Rustam Kuramshin from AppQuantum. He has a really cool background in player support from companies like I said, AppQuantum, Player Insight as Player Experience Lead, and a number of other different companies as well. So I'm excited to kind of learn about his day-to-day, what goes on in his head. So Rustam, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything I'm missing that you want to say about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. First of all, thank you, Greg, for having me on your podcast today. So let's talk about me. I'm working the player support over 8 years right now. I'm a tech savvy guy in this player support, but I also like working with people and meet their expectations and fix their problems and basically not only on my work but also on my daily routine, helping my friends and family to how to fix their games, or maybe Apple TV or Google Chromecast, etc.
I've been there. It's the life of a customer support people. They think you can fix every piece of electronic in the world, and it's just like, all right, I can't do that. Don't call me about that. But you'll still get those calls.
Yeah. And even in the middle of the night.
Yeah, right. There's no rest. You've spent a lot of time in customer support, and that's awesome. I got my career started there, and I've learned a lot. So I wanted to ask you questions about your day-to-day, but before we get started, let's go with a simple one. Are you a gamer still, and what are the games that you're playing right now?
Yeah, I'm still a player. So yeah, gamer, mobile, console, PC, standalones, Nintendo Switch, and even sometimes Nintendo Game Boy. Yeah, sometimes happens when I want to replay my Pokemon Yellow series. Yeah.
Are you playing Pal World then to kind of compete with Pokemon?
I didn't try it yet, but I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I want to try it. But right now I'm just playing Helldivers 2 with my friends.
Okay. So your role at AppQuantum is player support lead, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had this up. So your role is a player support team lead. Can you kind of explain to our audience, well, what's the role of a player support team lead at AppQuantum? Because I realize this might differ from company to company.
Yeah, it may differ from company to company, but main role, my main responsibilities is to handle how our team is how the player support team is structured, whether we need more agents or less agents, what is our daily routine. I mean, how many tickets we have during the day, what type of tools do we need to maybe order or buy, or maybe R&D, or maybe create with our internal development department, and also one-to-one sessions, development program. Maybe someone of the agents wants to be maybe QC manager, or maybe he understood that the agent want to rise in a UI department. I have this story in my background when one of my teammates understand that UI is his next big step.
So you're part of a good manager thing is identifying what your employees or the people that are working for you, where they want to aspire to get to, what they aspire to do. Is this part of when you're talking about coaching, like understanding what their interests are?
Yeah, because sometimes in customer support, if we'll talk not about only a player support, it's like a niche. You just jump on the boat in the IT industry, and then you want to understand whether you want to stick with it. But maybe like we saw different like examples when from the agent in technical support, like game designers, programmers, front end, back end, and etc. or client side.
So one of the things I feel like you need to do is you have to be a little organized, at least a little probably more organized than I am, to keep notes on people, to understand kind of the tools that you're taking a look at. I guess, is there a specific tool that you use on a daily basis that kind of helps you keep organized, that lets you stay on top of what you're doing?
On top of what I'm doing, so any to-do list application, it's or even like back in those days, like our fathers do, notebook with a pen. So yeah, sometimes you need just a good cup of tea, coffee at the morning, and at least what you're planning to do today. Maybe you need to just have a 3 meetings because in our fast-paced world, when everything changes within the hour, maybe in minutes, you need some kind of plan that you have 3 meetings with one-to-one, and you need to discuss it, because if you want that your team will grow with yourself, like you learn different tools, frameworks, or paradigms, or maybe you want to scale and adapt your team to the higher level, you need to plan this. You need to understand that one of your agents prefer like technical side of the issues. He good at it, and someone is better at quality control. So you need to plan their journey in your team and adapt new like tasks. Maybe, for example, if you want, well, when back in those days when we want to like integrate quality control in our team, we use like any other team Google Sheet and export the data. And at the first like steps, it's a team lead responsibility, but you could just uh, provide this like training session for an agent, and this agent will do the most of the work and train, and it will be he will be this feature owner of this quality control sessions and have other agents to
Yeah.
do their job better.
It's a fun way to kind of take a look at it and understand how you can best solve a problem, because certain employees are better at certain tasks, and being able to identify that and put them. How often do you normally meet with employees? Is it a weekly meeting, monthly meeting? Just what's the cadence of that?
Cadence, we have basically every weekly meeting. So we gather with like all of our team just to plan our let's say sprints. We plan our tasks, how many issues we received on our last week, maybe some pain points we have, maybe urgent issues or bugs in our applications we need to like push in on this week. And or if we talk about one-to-ones, sometimes for the junior, like say let's say junior agents, it's better to do it on a weekly basis, because it's a new employee, lack of experience in some like how to do or resolve this issue, or maybe answer on a player's review in a Google Play Store, as example. Yeah, and you need to provide him a feedback, consistent feedback, because back in my days when I just like assigned as an agent role, I wanted this feedback, and I want to understand in which direction I need to upgrade my skills, even like communication or maybe technical side. Yeah, so yeah, consistency. But for the senior, for example, senior, it's okay for the bi-weekly, even monthly.
Yeah, it's an interesting point to put that people may not know necessarily what skills they like at first, and it's your job to help kind of learn and help expose that for the support agent. So taking a look at yourself, right? You've been in these types of roles for over 8 years at this point. You started at Game Insight, kind of we talked about AppQuantum. How does your approach changed, right? When you first started, right, you were probably more of an agent, but like,
Yeah.
how did your approach to working with your staff change?
So reflecting back on my journey, back in those days, we were in the middle of paradigm shift from email only contact channel to the predominantly in-app player support. So, and at this point, we realized the importance of scalability and finding workarounds faster and quick adaptability for to the technology's changes, because I think maybe at 2016 it starts like shifting to the early stages of ML AI on the big stage of IT, not only internal as like space or NASA, etc., or maybe only in Google, like fan companies, but in the small companies like IT and etc. And my biggest learning was about understanding our players' needs and meeting their expectations, because like when like in early like 2005, like we played on flash games in the browser, but nowadays like on the your mobile handheld phone, and our pipeline of release is bi-weekly, for example, maybe less, because players want their new features, in-game events, conquer new mountains, for example, in any other game, and or compete with each other, and to get the reward for this approach. Yeah, so yeah, we work a lot on improving communication, like building helpful self-service centers, quickly resolving technical issues. Player journey doesn't just so I learned that a player's journey doesn't just resolve around the actual gameplay. And when a player meet their like, any issue, he just open the in-game support for the with help center with FAQs and etc. And on the second button, he just contacted with an agent, or maybe a bot, and it helps to resolve this issue faster.
Yeah, I like a few things that you said there, right? I think you talked about scaling, you talked about automation, you also talked about player immersion, or the player experience doesn't just fall into the gameplay itself. It also, I mean, even beyond what you said, right? The player experience, the customer experience. If these days people go on Discord, people go on Reddit, people try and find other communities, and it
Yeah.
even still follows that
Yeah.
branding, right? So if you're playing a type of game, you want to feel that type of immersion no matter what channel you're on. And people just think it's customer support. And yeah, it is just customer support, but the more it feels immersive, the more it feels like it's fine-tuned to them, I think it's going to be the better experience for them. And it's going to be something that they're more likely to use. And the thing I want to focus on here is you talked about automation and scaling it in the early stages of chat, right? You mentioned it was
Yeah.
like about 8 years ago when people started kind of starting to move away from email to in-game support. How do you, Rustam, how do you take a look at these technologies, and like how do you improve yourself on them while also managing some people?
So first of all, I started to learn every like site or maybe reports uh, which was generated big companies. For example, Forrester Analytics like company, they posted a report. They delivered another report where they said that all the customers they don't want to hear AI looks like a human. They just want short, concise answers and shortness of the issue resolution. So just press a button, and for example, from banking, you press a button and your credit card was reissued. So in this case, you don't need an agent to resolve this issue or query. In gaming industry, for example, it's easier to implement, like reissue the purchase or subscription, or maybe restore a progress or transfer a progress from one platform to another.
So you're creating those workflows to help kind of, again, you realize that it's more about getting the customer directly to the solution rather than kind of, and what's the quickest way to do that?
Yeah, because I'm this player, I'm this customer, and I act in some cases when I want to put myself on the road of research and development. I'm just opening different support channels, or maybe read books like Delivering Happiness about Zappos, or maybe, for example, a book about the best service is no service. So this it's not only about these success stories, but they also mentioned a story where you need to learn. So in my case, for example, if I purchase in-game item, so I want this in-game item and I want to receive this item as soon as possible, whether it will be agent or bot or maybe any other AI solution. So faster, it's better.
You mentioned also earlier on, right? We talked about scaling support teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people do struggle with and understand how you could do that. So this is kind of a 2-point question, and maybe it should have been a separate question, but you also just mentioned Zappos delivering happiness, right? How do you stay on top of the latest trends of what's happening in customer success? How do you educate yourself on that? And with that, because scaling is part of that, how do you take a look at scaling, and how do you think about implementing things like that?
So only on the base, in the customer support, you have like a formula, like full-time employee, and you just, for example, you have on average 1,000 tickets per week. You need 8 hours. You have an 8-hour shift per day, so you need this amount shifts per week, and you calculate this. It's like basic, like common approach, I think, in customer support, to just calculate a full-time employee. But in this approach doesn't count on how this issue, you just answer about the gameplay issue or gameplay question. For example, how to hatch the egg, for example, in Pell World, or maybe it's like transfer the profile between one platform to another. It's a different time consumption of the issue. And for example, if in any bad cases, like urgent, when like you have a bug on your production, it's skyrocketing in tickets immediately, and you do want to have, you have to have this amount of agents, just not to just to resolve this issue based on your SLAs and KPIs. Even if you have, like, for example, 4 agents on your shift, you ask another one to go out for extra money, for example, and resolve these issues in time.
Do you, when you factor in metrics like that, though, do you take into account potential of bots and what bots can handle?
Yeah. It's in nowadays it's better just to do it quarterly, just to analyze your issues, categories, issue types, and analyze this data and create flow with like bots and through APIs. So if in some cases, for example, player wants to, he's providing a feedback, for example, we gather information from the player about the feedback. This feedback we can deliver or handle this feedback to our product team. And if our product team decide that this feedback was very precious, so we created a new feature, for example, in our game, and we want to provide this player with in-game crystals, in-game currency, or maybe a unique item. It's easier to do it with a custom bot and API. So we just track this information, store it in some database, and then just push this reward to the player.
You mentioned kind of communication with the product team, and that's something we've seen some studios sometimes have trouble with. And my previous lifetime, when I was a customer support person, it wasn't gaming, but we would butt heads with product a lot because we would think we would know the features that our users were complaining about, and product wasn't always whatever. You see your side of the world, right?
Yeah.
How do you and your team, how do you guys when you do make that request to product, right? Is there a formal methodology to do that, or you just drop it in a Slack or Teams message and let them know?
I think in urgent situation where your production server or the game client just crashing on a blink of an eye, you need just provide this information to your product team, product manager, producer, programmer, or backend developer as soon as possible, and in the short message with all the information about this bug or the issue. But if you want to fix the bug, you are living, all the players are living this with this bug, for example, for 1 year. You need to provide a good technical documentation, like bug report in task tracker, with step to reproduce, with examples of tickets, maybe screenshots, or maybe logs. If we will talk about PC games, it's easier to record the logs on this type of platform. Basically, you at the first place, I think you need a good communication skill, because even if you are working in the customer support, where communication skill is the main skill, but when you start talking about the feature request or bug issues, you need a different approach in your messaging.
Yeah, right. It's something that I think both teams can agree upon and follow. When it comes to your specific team, I asked a little earlier kind of what tools you use, and you talked about, well, for a different thing, you mentioned kind of pen and paper, but for the actual technical work that you are using, I know HelpShift, right? But what platforms do you utilize for your team that they're working with their customers on, that they're escalating, that they're working on? Are there other tools as well?
So right now at Quantum, we are using HelpShift in our games, because it provides us with this cool feature in app support. Because as because we are also playing the games, it's easier to communicate within your application rather than just use deep link mail to and then drop an email. It's easier to answer an email on your phone and then on PC or on your tablet and etc. But when you could resolve your issue within okay, not minutes because of the asynchronous communication, but within a couple of hours, and it's easier to grab information about actual player on the back of this SDK. You have information about his support ID, platform, app version, maybe issue type, maybe how much it's his or her total purchase. And it's easier to route this issue to the actual agent. Maybe it's a first line, maybe it's a second line, maybe it's a question about a legal question. So it's manager issue. Because sometimes I handle this type of tickets in daily routine. Yeah, sometimes it's
Yeah, and I love that aspect of the platform, is that you can kind of set up the routing to go to
Yeah.
the appropriate teams and things like that. How often do you take a look at the user feedback, your players' feedback, and figuring out how you can change the support system to better fit their needs?
Yeah, so in gaming industry, CSAT in most cases isn't working like we want because it's like a double-edged sword. So in-app support provides you with a easier communication channel, but at this point, every pain point and every like issue a player have, it also mirrored on the CSAT. So you need to analyze not only CSAT, but for example, NPS or customer effort, because for example, customer effort score provides you with information if you with information about, for example, how good your help center is, or FAQ, or maybe your bot flow isn't working like you expect. Maybe you need to like deconstruct it and make it shorter. You can find not any, but a good best practices in different blogs, even Help Shift's blog, or maybe any other customer support service like Zendesk, Help Scout. It's base information, but you need to analyze it on a quarterly basis because it's fast-paced world.
Yeah.
IT development, not only just IT, but gaming development. You release 5 events past year, and then you create a different version, like with guilds, in-game chats, communities, and etc. So yeah.
I know there's some tools out there that help enable kind of feedback for your customer support agents, internal, right? Like basically
Yeah.
review periods. Like can't think of any of the tools. I know Muros is one, but
Yeah.
are you using any tools to help provide agent feedback, say, for coaching, for stuff like that?
I used Miros as an example. Yeah, it's a good tool to analyze a big amount of data. It's easier to do it, and it's easier to connect help desk services to mirrors because of the API integration or maybe native integration. It provides a safe place where you can communicate with agent personally, like on one-to-one, or like nowadays you have not only in-house teams but working from home. You don't have a separate like meeting room to
Yeah.
chat personally, so you have to have this like type of like separate page on to talk only with actual agent and provide with the feedback, giving a different approach how to resolve some kind of issue.
As a gamer yourself, right? You said you play on almost every system here that we have here. How often do you go into the support menu of other games, just kind of see what they're doing and how they're doing it, or is it something that you don't really?
It's a good question. I think if you want to be a good customer role, not only in player support but only even all the customers, you want to ask yourself to go out and drop a message to different support teams. And sometimes it's a good idea to test their nerves and pretend that you are not insane. For example, I just lost my progress and watch how they respond on this message. The good artist like copy, like yeah, greatest
They
steal.
draw
Yeah,
inspiration.
yeah, the inspirations, because when you see different approaches, you can combine some like text messages or create a new tool, like internal tool to how to resolve the issue, or you understand that your FAQ isn't good enough. For example, in Asia, FAQs in Asian games, they use like a stars, and they change bullet list in the star like bullets. So this they have a different approach in formatting. FAQs. And I saw it, the last place where I saw it is on December. It's a action RPG game, and they use this type of like formatting. But in like Europe and USA style, I think it's good approach with bullet lists, one, two, three, and etc. Maybe chapters, and etc. But it's also a good time to analyze in which FAQs, for example, this like support team uses GIFs or images, because some cases we have, because we are people, some of them it's better to read the text, some of them it's better to just watch a video on YouTube or GIF or maybe image. So yeah, it's different approach.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? I mean, I know it helps us reduce support kind of the different types of
Yeah,
self-service versus agent, and it's always interesting to understand what subset of users want to do self-service versus which subset of users want to provide an agent. And I think it all comes down to your point a little earlier, it's like your FAQs. How are they formatted? Are they clean? Are they, again, it's interesting. I didn't know about the it being different in certain parts of Asia, the different lists, but like once you start knowing that, do you create separate, which you can do, right? Do you
yeah.
create different FAQs for them? And just picking up on those trends, I think is fascinating. I wouldn't even think about doing that. And we mentioned about 8 years ago is when in-app support started, and now we're seeing other channels really kind of kick it into high gear, where things like Discord, Reddit's always been a little bit popular there. Like, how do you do you even look at providing customer support on those platforms right now? Has it things you ever thought about? And how would you, I guess, how would you handle that or approach that?
I looked at it. So I haven't like internal tested it, like an on trial, but because or with a different approach. So Discord, I think they suspended like in-game SDK features, so it's like less communication within the app. You need to like for the players, if we will talk about the mobile games, it's easier just to stick with the one single channel. It's like not only single channel because you have the basic one, email, and the help service on your site, and then in-app support. So this is the main basic three types for the mobile thing. It's good enough because the one will provide you with all the data about the player. If we will talk about console, for example, I think it's like it helps if you have a QR code to open via web chat to communicate with the support team using your phone. It's harder to analyze data and help players in Discord. It's harder. It's if you want to communicate with a little like community, it's okay. You can, because it's easier to communicate with, for example, 50, 100 active players. But if you have like millions of active players, oh, it's a mess. It, because of the lack of the like automations, custom bots, APIs, you will have to hire so many agents for the manual work and not just automate this using like the bots and etc.
Yeah, it's one of those things that in the app you can control the full experience. You can pass through the data you want. The problem is you can't really stop people from talking on Discord,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I mean, I don't know. Helpshift does offer a Discord plugin. This isn't a sales pitch, right? But like, again, you can't capture all that information, right? We can capture things like the Discord username, and to start, allows you to still keep your data from within the platform. But to your point, right? If it's on your own proprietary system, whether it be your game, whether
yeah.
it be your website, right? Then you can at least control that data. Once it's on the web or on Discord, it becomes a little more the wild, wild west where you don't know what the type of data you're going to get is.
Yeah. It's because, for example, like in Twitter, I have some like cases when I contacted customer support through Twitter, and they send me for example, email or link to their web chat, and then they communicate and resolve my issue within this channel, but not in the Twitter, in the
Yeah.
DM of the Twitter.
Yeah.
But if you want to help the players, you need to check Discord or Reddit on daily basis, because it's your active and mostly hardcore community. They will provide you with bugs and issues within the seconds when this, like for example, your update delivered to the production. Yeah.
A little bit more about kind of the role of player support team lead. When you wake up in the morning, there's certain days you wake up, you're like, yeah, I can't wait to do this at work today, or days you dread because of something what happens. Well, what's the type of exciting thing that gets you excited to get going in the morning and get working?
Because we are working in the gaming industry, so developing new features, new events. I want to help my. It's not only about me right now, because back in those days when I was an agent, it just work worked only around me. So my goal, mine, etc. But right now, it's all about my team. I want that my team do something. So they create, maybe some agent use ChatGPT to create a new feature or maybe script to handle their daily routine task faster. And then we just asked our internal development team to create like a single, like a new, not just like application, but a microservice to handle this on a daily. So just scheduled it. On the 8 a.m., for example, mention me at Slack about how many issues created during the night on night shift. And yeah, it's not only about me, but about the team. Yeah.
I think that's a sign of a good manager, someone that gets excited about enabling others to achieve what they want, achieve more, aspire where they go. I think that gets your team excited and wants them to probably work harder. On the flip side, something I struggled with a lot of my career is not knowing what's next, right? It's you don't know where your career goes. So as a player support team lead, where would you aspire to go from? What would be your next logical step if you even thought about it?
So I think the next step, maybe like bigger games, bigger approach, maybe scale my game, bigger team, bigger approach, maybe tools. I'm tech savvy guy, so yeah, I like tools. I like test the new tools, implement them, and also I'm providing my team with like technical presentations, how this feature works, how you can use this feature to test business logic. Is it working or not? For our example,
If I came to you like 10 years ago and said, Rustam, what should I do to get into the industry? You'd say, hey, you make sure your email skills are good, you're organized, you can keep up to date. Similar things still these days, right? But now we're in a whole new era where it's not emails. So say there's kids who are young and want to get into the industry, the gaming industry, and they're looking at maybe CS as being their approach. Any advice you would give people to get started on how they can?
yeah, that's a fantastic question. Yeah, so as a player support, I think firstly, develop strong communication skills. In player support, you are not just assigning players with bugs, so not just assisting players with bugs or issues, but also, like you mentioned before, communicating with your internal team, product team, marketing team, and etc. And you need to train this skill to be a bridge between players and your development team, product team. So clear, prompt, and respectful communication, I think it's essential.
Communication skills are key, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think no matter what industry you look at, especially you are the face of the game to someone, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when a player reaches out, and I'm working with one of your agents, right? They're representing the game, and I think if you have sloppy typing skills, poor grammatical skills, right? Yeah, that's probably not the look your game or your company wants to have.
Yeah, and it will be my second point. So you need to understand your product, because even if you are not like a mobile player, but you a player, this means you're immersing yourself in the games and communities you are interested in. So it will help you to understand what frustrates players. For example, in the mobile games, you open the Reddit, you read it, and it help you understand and combine information from issues. It's easier to create a bug report for your product team, and also it will help you to meet their expectations. In most cases, in tickets, you will meet less good feedback, only like negative highlights of your issues, progress transfer, payment issue, or gaming question. So you need to gather this information. You must possess the patience of a saint in the player support, like in the customer support. Yeah, in the world of player support and experience, not every player will be polite or understanding, and it's important to keep cool and remain professional in all circumstances.
I love that. I have experienced that many times in my
Yeah.
life of trying to deal with unruly end users, and it's hard to find a way to keep your cool sometimes.
I think the last point is, remember that the gaming industry is incredibly dynamic. Just keep learning and adapting with the changes. Be it new games, new communities, or technological advancements, and you'll always be in the good position. Yeah.
So, Rustam, I appreciate all that insight that you brought to our call today. I think it's great to understand how you can succeed as a support rep, a technical agent, right? How you can kind of build out your career, how you can help your agents, how you can grow, how you can just deal with others. There's a lot of information here and cool stuff. So I appreciate that. And before we go today, is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, thank you very much. And let me say, it's not just a job; it's career, but a career that requires passion and dedication. If you love gaming and have the desire to create a real impact on players' gaming experience, then there is no better field than this one.
I love it. I love it. You can become the face of a game to some players that need help. And I think it's super important. And I think it's a great way to get started. That's how I got started in my career. And I think that a lot of people can get started very easily in customer support. And again, Rustam, thank you so much for joining us today. You can check out AppQuantum. We'll send information about their website. We'll send information about Rustam. So again, thank you for joining me today, Rustam. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Greg. Have a nice rest of the day too.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast with Rustam. We learned a lot of cool things about customer support and how you can build and scale teams. If you learned anything, please be sure to click like and share this with others that you think might get some value out of this episode. Next week's episode is going to be a great one. We're going to talk about accessibility in gaming and hear how we can get more people gaming, because the more people in this community that are playing games, the better it is. So come back next week, learn more about accessibility, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks.